very dangerous and very difficult moment, of course. Even as we speak, the battle in Kherson region of Ukraine is raging right now. And this is apparently a major offensive, and it is part of an ongoing proxy war between Russia and the United States that is extraordinarily dangerous and escalating. So I am profoundly nervous and advocating a different approach to the war and a different approach to our global security. The problem, in my view, is that the great powers, the US, Russia, and China in particular, are absolutely not behaving with prudence and with a proper caution in an extraordinarily dangerous time. And frankly, I put most of the responsibility actually not on Putin or not on China, but on the United States, because I'm very worried that the United States is too provocative, too pushy, too threatening, and too much instigating the tensions and the conflicts that we are seeing. It's not a very popular view in most of Europe right now, and it's definitely not a popular view in the United States. But it is my understanding of this crisis, having been involved in Russia going back to 1989 and Ukraine from 1991 onward, and having been involved with China for now 43 years. So let me explain briefly. In my view, we are at war in Ukraine in large part because of the U.S. idea of expanding NATO to Ukraine and Georgia. The idea that George Bush proposed in 2008 at the Bucharest summit. And when he put that forward, Putin was there the next day because there was a Russia-NATO meeting the next day. And Putin said to Bush, if you expand to Ukraine, Russia will retake Crimea. And it was very explicit. Stay out of our neighborhood and keep a distance, or else there will be a reaction from Russia that is extremely severe. And I believe that fundamentally that's what we are experiencing right now. Of course, there was a lot of history between 2008 and 2022. We had 14 years of successive events. But those 14 years were years of growing distrust, not trust, and an escalation of arms flows, not diplomacy. And my own experience showed me in 2014 when the Ukraine pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych, was overthrown in an insurrection, that the United States government and associated civil society organizations, if we could call them that, played a significant role in the overthrow of the Yanukovych government. And as soon as he was overthrown, the new government said, we abandoned neutrality, we want to join NATO. And so from Russia's point of view, the war really began in 2014 with this overthrow of their pro-Russian president and with the abandonment of neutrality by Ukraine. So in late 2021, when Russia was amassing troops on the border of Ukraine, I had a long conversation with the White House at that time, and I urged that the Biden administration should make clear to Russia that NATO would not enlarge to this 1,600 kilometer border with Russia. But the White House position was that they would never agree to such a limitation on NATO enlargement, and that no negotiation was possible on that issue. And so I believe that we lost the chance for diplomacy and peace. The war broke out on February 24th. Within 1 month, Zelensky said that he thought that neutrality with adequate guarantees by outside forces would be an alternative for Ukraine. And Turkey was mediator, and Russia and Ukraine exchanged papers that led both countries and Turkey to the optimistic statements that an agreement was very close at hand. But then, just as an agreement was being reached, Ukraine walked away from the negotiating table and told the Turkish intermediaries that they were putting a hold on any further negotiations. We don't know why exactly, but my feeling is that the United States talked Ukraine into more fighting because they said, you can defeat Russia on the battlefield, you don't have to agree to neutrality. If that's what happened, it was a very fateful decision and a wrong one, in my view, because it has, of course, prolonged the war, led to escalation, led to tens of thousands of deaths of Ukrainians and many thousands of deaths of Russians, and now brought us much closer to nuclear conflict as well, which many people are recognizing is an actual and immediate danger. At the same time, and I'll just conclude with this, the United States is in a similar but not yet hot conflict with China. And we're playing a very provocative game as well. The source of the problems with China are actually twofold. First, the United States is actively trying to weaken the Chinese economy by restricting the sales of any high technology goods that the U.S. says could have a dual military purpose. So the U.S. is trying to stop all advanced technologies that use any U.S. technology and imposing sanctions on the whole world to stop any shipments to China that include a class of high-end U.S. technology. This is deliberately, of course, to weaken the Chinese economy. At the same time, the U.S. is staking out a strong and provocative position vis-a-vis Taiwan by very visibly siding with a very nationalist Taiwanese government that says Taiwan is sovereign, and playing very loose with the one China policy that underpins U.S.-China diplomacy. So the Chinese government views the U.S. as openly trying to encourage Taiwan to break away from China. And China's entire statecraft, I would say, is oriented around national unity to prevent a kind of repetition of the more than 1 century of meddling of outside powers in China that occurred between the Opium War of 1839 and the independence or the People's Republic of China beginning in 1949. So the U.S. is also in a very, very dangerous environment with China. But in my view, it is being extremely provocative, such as when the U.S. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, flew to Taiwan, absolutely unneeded, just raising temperatures, anger, instability, and so on. And this is what I call the opposite of prudence. This is imprudent behavior. Whether she had a right to go to Taiwan or not is not the point. It was not wise to go to Taiwan. It is not wise to invite a conflict with China. It is not wise for the U.S. Congress to say, we will flood Taiwan with advanced weaponry. That doesn't help Taiwan's security. It just makes a war with the mainland more likely. So we are meeting at the most perilous time of geopolitics in modern times. I think we are in the most dangerous moment since the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was exactly 60 years ago this month. And the Cuban Missile Crisis was the biggest threat to human survival we've ever had. And we are dangerously flirting with those dangers again, this time with U.S. confrontations on two fronts, with Russia and with China. And this is what our efforts, in my view, need to be focused on, to push countries to negotiate, to say, no, Mr. Zelensky, you're not going to defeat Russia on the battlefield. You're going to negotiate with Russia, and we're going to help to ensure that you have the sovereign guarantees that you need. But this will come through negotiation, not by Ukraine defeating Russia, which is a concept that makes no sense to me. And similarly, by saying to the United States, sit down with China, stop the saber rattling, negotiate, and reduce tensions, because the whole world is suffering from this rise of tensions. And of course, the whole world stands to face disaster if there is a miscalculation. So those are my thoughts today. I will stop there and look forward to our discussion. As to nuclear war, we need a negotiated outcome. I think if a few governments will say this, it would have a huge difference, because many more believe it but dare not say it right now.